What is with the sexism in young adults? Some of you might be wondering what I'm talking about. When you read young adult, it's mostly a lot of teenage girl stuff. It's about falling in love, it's about growing up, it's about finding yourself, it's all the other adventures you can go through, be it real life or paranormal. So why is there so much sexism in it? Now you might be thinking, that's a little weird. You just said it was aimed at teenage girls, so wouldn't it be empowering them? And in a lot of ways, yes, most of the books are empowering them. You read something like Uglies from Scott Westerfeld, it is absolutely about just being a person and how that can empower you to make the decisions you need to make. In his novel Leviathan, that is particularly shown when the main female character goes and joins the army dressed up as a boy and tries to pass as one and proves that she's extremely efficient at what she does. The problem is that you have the others. You have House of Night. You have Twilight. You have The Mortal Instruments. You have just a bunch of these novels and series that are popular, and they're just rampant with these things that are meant to tear down women their age. Why? House of Night is a prime example of this. To start off, I'm going to admit I didn't make it past book 4. That's about all I could stand. But it really is exemplified in there what I mean. A book series gets popular, it's aimed at teenage girls, and the teenage girls eat it up, and so do older women. The weird thing is that the ones that get super popular like this are just made to tear down other teenage girls. And it's freaking atrocious. So Zoe is the main character of House of Night, and yes, she does make some friends who are girls and all that happy stuff. And yes, there's the whole cursing and sleeping with her teacher and all that. The thing that disturbs me is that at the instant she doesn't like a girl, that girl's a hoe. And that is just all throughout the books that I read. Every girl that she doesn't like for whatever reason is a hoe. What is a hoe? A hoe is someone who sleeps around. Mostly a female. Almost exclusively a female. And it's kind of disturbing to me that these books are just so popular. Like, House of Night was huge for a while. It's kind of awful. Twilight is a prime example of this. Whether you like it or not, you really can't deny that Bella has some issues with other women. And it's not just, oh, she doesn't get along with Edward's sister or whatever, and oh, she does have a friend in his other sister. That's not the point. The point is that when she interacted with female classmates her own age, she couldn't stand them. She thought she was better than them. And yes, that applied to the boys too, but there was particular disdain for the girls in that one. And then you have Stephenie Meyer's redo of Twilight, where she switched the genders to prove that it's not a sexist story. And it turned out even more sexist. She basically changed one of the women's roles in the first book where she got raped and that was why she was a terrible person or whatever. And then when she turned this girl into a guy, suddenly he wasn't raped, he was just beat up. Why? What was wrong with the rape story? I thought that was good enough to show what a traumatic past. If you're changing the genders, why are you changing the situation? Because guys can't get raped? What? Oh my God, don't even get me started on Mortal Instruments. Now, I haven't read very much of it, but I did notice that Clary seems to have massive issues with any other girl. She sees them as competition, and that is really not a healthy mindset. I deal with that at my blue-collar job. No, I do get along with most of the women there, but there's always at least one, every once in a while, that you come onto their crew, and all of a sudden it's like, other woman? Oh, no. No. I get all the attention here. I'm going to do everything I can to put her down. And it's not even always aimed at me. It was aimed at one of my other coworkers before she quit. It was horrible to watch. It was just comments like, oh, you are just treated this way because you're young and pretty. When you get old like me, guys aren't going to treat you that nice anymore. But that's the sort of thing I see in these books. It's the same mentality. The main female characters in so many young adult books that get popular are tearing down other women just for being other women. There's almost never any real reason to hate them. The worst part is that there's always these other token women, these female best friends, the one girl they can get along with, and it just makes it even worse. I've obviously been a high schooler. I've done all 4 years of high school, and I definitely did it as an outcast, and I've been picked on, and I know how it feels. So I guess that's why it kind of bothers me that when I read these stories, there's just so much of the main characters who are teenagers, and we're supposed to like them, and they just tear down other women in their groups sometimes just because maybe competition? And even so, why is that even an issue? Life is kind of like that. Love kind of sometimes becomes competition. When you have a love triangle, you often see, like, whether it's two guys fighting over one girl, two girls fighting over one guy, you see that clash happen. And in real life, the mature thing to do would be to teach these girls that it's not a prize. The one you love is not a prize. It's up to them who they want to be with. No one can steal a man from you. He chose to leave. I think that's where a lot of this comes from. Like, almost always it seems to come in some sort of love triangle or some false love triangle or just some false angst or whatever. And it's so awful to see that just saturating the market. And there are other books out there that don't do that. They just don't get the same amount of attention most of the time. And I don't understand why. Like, why feed into those feelings? Being a teenager is emotional and hard enough without feeding into those insecurities. And no, it's not just fiction. Whether authors want to admit it or not, a lot of what people read does shape how they think at least a little bit, whether it's conforming to their mindset or changing it. And if we're going to be changing it, we need to be changing it for the better. It reaches a point where it's not just sexism anymore. It's just outright bullying. And it might not be them punching another girl or shoving her head down a toilet or whatever, but the emotional bullying is still there. I thought we were supposed to be fighting bullying in schools at this age. Why are we trying to encourage it in our fiction, especially the ones that readers voraciously get into? The young adult category needs change. We need to make more strong female leads, and not just physical strength. We need to find more female leads who are willing to forgive, who are willing to grow up, who, while they might start out petty, they do actually become better by the end of it, instead of just feeding into this horrible mindset that all life is a competition and that men can be won over and that other women we need to cut down before they get what we want. Is it personal to me because of my past? Very likely, but I don't really think that the meaning changes any. There are a lot of great books out there that don't succumb to this, and we really should be pushing those forward. We really should be pushing these thoughts, these bettering of ourselves concepts into young readers' minds. And even if these books don't actually impress thoughts upon these girls and make them subconsciously think some of this stuff is okay, it's all over the place, and it's really depressing to read all the time. It is really upsetting to know that when I go to a store and pick up a book, 9 times out of 10 in the young adult category, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some terrible thing where another woman is tearing another female down just to do it, just because that's what life is. It shouldn't be. As human beings, we are supposed to better everything. We're supposed to change things for the better. And when we feed into this mentality that life is a competition and that men can be won over and that love is a prize, we don't change anything for the better. We just kind of take it back to the older days where that's how things were, where it was a competition because that's what we need to do to survive. We're past that. We're pretty good, at least in the first world countries, at surviving. A lot of this just ends up bordering on bullying, and it's just so depressing to read, especially since when I was a young girl, there were all kinds of books that went against that. Judy Blume's Blubber, fantastic, classic example. You actually get into the mindset of a girl who is a bully, and then you watch as she changes, and she slowly realizes that's not the way to be, that it's just detrimental, that it only makes things worse and not better, that people who do that really aren't secure with themselves inside. There's not anything to be proud of for picking on someone just because of who they are or what they are, that they happen to be another woman just like them. I want to see the young adult category stray away from this bullying and internal sexism towards females. I want to see more of this on traditional bookshelves. You can see some of these changes in the indie world, and it's fantastic. There are some great new books out there by authors that are up and coming that traditional book publishers aren't giving a chance because they don't think they're going to sell as well. And a lot of what's not selling as well in young adult is the fact that we don't have this stupid petty stuff going on. We don't have books that get in deeper, and we need that. Young adult category needs that. It's no wonder that it's not taken seriously. Next to romance, I'm pretty sure it's one of the least taken seriously genres out there, and yet they both sell really well. Why? We should be making these changes to make them more interesting and to make them better. Romance authors will argue that the romance genre is about empowering women, and mostly I can see that. It might not be my cup of tea most of the time, but I can absolutely see how it's empowering to write and read books about women who are sexually powerful and comfortable with themselves and just do what they want to do. And they make the chase, or they make the decisions. I guess I just find it kind of depressing that the first example I thought of when I thought of a strong female character who didn't tear down other women was a man writing it, too. Like, there are some women out there who absolutely do that. L.J. Smith is still one of my heroes for that exact reason. There was always an empowerment to it, and there was never any of this, she's competition, I'm taking her down. Like, it was just people being people. It was teenagers being teenagers without dragging all of this stupid, demoralizing stuff down in with them. And we need to have more of the uplifting stuff. And I'm not saying like everything gets a happy ending, because I know for a fact I love things that don't exactly have a happy ending. I kind of like to see people's lives destroyed. But it would be so good to see a positive shift in the way that we help young adult women look at other women. To see a shift in it becoming not so much competition, but potential allies or friends, or even just people that we don't associate with because we don't happen to have anything in common with them. Like, just have them not take into account what their past was. Oh, well, I heard she slept around with a bunch of other guys, so, I mean, she's obviously a slut, and we can't encourage that. I thought that the whole idea was to empower them. While it might not be a terrible phenomenon, I do think that we do need to see the change in this category. And like I said, the indie stuff is definitely starting to do that. And when I start making more recommendations for it, I think you'll see exactly what I mean. So, yeah, I think there is a problem with sexism and bullying in the young adult category. Is it rampant? Not exactly, but it's still pretty obvious and it's still pretty there, and it's almost disturbingly popular. And I'd really like to see a change in that. And I would like to see more women who get along, who make friends and make allies, and who don't get so obsessed with the lead male that they just throw all their morals out the window and become petty and jealous all the time. Is it going to happen? Absolutely, but tone it down a little bit. They got enough of that already. Bye, guys.